Before we dive into today's epic HFY sci-fi tale, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you love stories where humanity proves the galaxy wrong. Drop your thoughts below. What would Earth's real apex predator be? Now, let's begin. The chains clinked like dead echoes across the marble floor, each metallic rattle a cruel punctuation to the silent march of the condemned. Commander Elias Rourke's boots left faint, bloody prints behind him as he was led through the crystalline archway of the Drexel Prime Tribunal. His head was high, though a gash split his temple and one eye was swollen nearly shut. He didn't stumble, didn't falter. Beside him padded something vast, white-furred, and breathing low thunder through its nostrils. Veloc. The creature walked without chains, though its paws were fitted with energy-dampening braces. The tribunal had tried muzzling it until the first handler lost an arm. Since then they settled for a dome of layered gravitic suppression wrapped around its thickly muscled frame, a prison invisible to the eye but heavier than lead. The creature's fur shimmered like fallen snow under moonlight, sleek and unmarred. Its bioluminescent eyes, twin glacial blue stars, tracked every movement with calculating stillness. Aliens from 27 coalition species watched from their tiered seats, their faces ranging from contemptuous to bemused. Generals, scholars, emissaries, each garbed in ceremonial armor or shimmering robes. This was no legal hearing. It was a performance. A trial by mockery. Bring forth the apex and its keeper, the lead judge rasped, his crystalline fingers clicking as he motioned forward. A Threxian, his entire body refracted light like a prism, though his expression was coldly amused. Commander Rourke was forced to kneel at the center of the arena. Veloc sat beside him, massive and unmoving, a mountain of white muscle and silent threat. "This is the best your planet could breed?" scoffed General Droth of the Vritar Dominion, his mandibles twitching with disdain. "We expected something more, feral. Less obedient." Murmurs of agreement hissed across the chamber. "He looks tired," purred a Loker diplomat, her semi-transparent skin rippling with subtle bioluminescence. "Perhaps he is, what do the humans say, housebroken?" A ripple of laughter followed. Rourke didn't respond. His gaze moved across the seats, noting the layout, the sentries, the exits. Calculating. Always. Another alien stepped forward, a 7-foot Obrex war historian with wrinkled, bark-like skin and contempt in his voice. Earth's military resistance collapsed in 4 cycles. Yet this thing, he motioned toward Veloc, killed 32 elite troopers during the siege of Telemar. Alone. The records are incomplete. Why? No one answered. Veloc did not blink. The judge leaned forward, light refracting around his jagged head. "Perhaps you misunderstand the purpose of today's gathering, human. We are not here to seek truth. We are here to witness failure." Another round of laughter. General Droth stepped closer. "This is your apex predator? This is the beast we were told stalks through snowstorms, rips through armor, devours flesh, and obeys no master." He waved a clawed hand. "All I see is a trained dog." He spat, and the glob of saliva sizzled on the floor beside Veloc's paw. The room held its breath. Veloc didn't move, didn't growl, didn't bare teeth, but his eyes turned, slowly, deliberately, to meet Droth's. The general froze. His lower limbs twitched. The eyes didn't blink. They simply stared. "You see," Droth said after a beat, his tone a little higher. "Tame." The judge spoke again. "Commander Rourke, you were captured during a failed evacuation attempt from Earth's southern resistance front. You've been silent for 3 solar weeks. Perhaps you'll share with us now why your kind thought these creatures," he nodded at Veloc, "could sway the outcome of war." Rourke looked up. Blood had dried along the edge of his cheek. His voice when it came was hoarse. "You never fought us." "Not really." The chamber stilled. "You fought our machines. You fought our satellites. You fought the edges of our resolve. But you never met what hunts in our shadows. What waits in the ice. What doesn't run." "And what is that, human?" the Obrex scoffed. "This overgrown feline?" "I wasn't talking about him." Veloc's ear twitched. "Then enlighten us," the judge said, amused. Rourke exhaled through cracked lips. "We didn't create predators like Veloc to fight your armies. We created them because we knew one day the galaxy would come knocking, and wouldn't listen." He turned to Veloc. Said nothing. Just nodded. And for the first time the predator shifted. Not a lunge. Not an attack. But a single paw raised, and placed protectively in front of Rourke. A collective murmur swelled into shouting. He moved. "The field is active, isn't it?" "The suppression net," checked the grid. It's still on. He shouldn't be able to move. The judge barked, "Hold your positions." General Droth took a step back. His mandibles clicked uneasily. That's not possible. Velok rose, slow and smooth, a living glacier uncurling from stillness. The suppression field warped around him, flickering with pulses of blue light as if resisting the decision. He took one step forward. The weight of his paw cracked the marble underfoot. Panic surged in the higher tiers. Some alien envoys began retreating from the edge of their viewing balconies. "Guards!" shouted the judge. Dozens of plasma rifles snapped into position. Velok stopped. His voice did not come through his throat. It came through every mind in the room. "You mock the word apex. You wear it like stolen bone." Silence slammed down. The judge stood. What is this? What deception is this?" General Droth was frozen in place. Velok's eyes swept the room. "We listened. While you burned for us, we learned. While you called us beasts, we adapted. While you cataloged teeth and claws, you missed the one trait that made us lethal." "And what's that?" spat Droth, still rooted. "Choice." Gasp. Someone fainted. The Loker diplomat slipped off her pedestal and hit the floor with a wet thud. Commander Rourke's lip tugged upward. "Just a little." "He's not just a weapon," Rourke said. "He's my second. My brother. My voice when yours refused to hear mine." "Lies," the judge whispered. Velok took another step. No alarms blared. No plasma bolts fired. The suppression field died like a snuffed candle. "We did not come to surrender," Velok continued. "We came to listen. You made that impossible." A slow, rumbling growl curled from deep within him. "Now, you'll listen to us." Rourke rose to his feet beside the Predator. He wasn't chained anymore. The shackles lay in pieces, shattered like brittle ice beneath Velok's claws. From above, the light dimmed. Outside the crystalline tribunal dome, storm clouds began to gather over a planet that hadn't seen rain in centuries. The tribunal chamber plunged into quiet. Not fear. Not awe. Something older. Something every species recognized in its bones. Predator silence. And then the wind howled. Snow in the Drexel system was a myth, a poetic image conjured by off-worlders who had never seen real winter. But Rourke remembered it well. He remembered how silence could stretch across white wastelands so thoroughly that even your thoughts felt loud. And he remembered the moment when silence was broken by the cry of something dying. Years before the tribunal, before surrender talks and prison cells, he'd stood on the jagged ledge of a collapsed biodome on Earth's far north edge. His squad was gone, lost to a Loker artillery strike that had vaporized half the ridgeline. Their extraction point had been buried beneath a landslide of synthetic ice and fractured alloy. And beneath the debris, something cried out. It wasn't human. He'd found it half dead. A cub, no larger than a Labrador, its white fur slicked with blood, one hind leg mangled beneath the weight of a collapsed observation drone. Its throat rumbled with warning, but it didn't strike. Its eyes, already glowing with that eerie electric blue, held not fear but fury. A wild thing betrayed by its collapsing world. Rourke remembered kneeling beside it, setting his rifle down slowly, hands up. "You're not supposed to be real," he whispered. He knew what it was. Everyone did. Earth's predator genome projects were rumors denied by every government but whispered in military halls. Apex hybrids born from genetic remnants and artificial evolution. Vaulted away after early failures. Too wild. Too smart. Too human. He freed it anyway. Spent the next 10 days surviving alongside the creature in the ruins of the dome waste. It never spoke, not then. It just followed. Watched. Protected. When Loker scouts came hunting through the wreckage, it didn't wait for commands. It tore them apart. Rourke never gave it a name. It gave one to itself. Velok. On the 11th day it spoke, not aloud but in a voice that bypassed language, burrowing into his mind with ancient clarity. It didn't ask for anything. It only said 2 words. You stayed. After that there was no leash. No programming. No training manuals. Velok didn't follow Rourke because it was built to. He followed because he had chosen him. They returned to Earth's resistance lines like ghosts from a legend. 4 months after, they became myth and menace, striking coalition patrols at night, disabling forward posts, unraveling command lines. Rourke and Velok weren't just soldiers. They were the storm whispered about on every alien frequency. But even myths bleed. The final mission, Telemar Ridge, had been a desperate maneuver. Extract wounded and destroy a key data relay before orbital forces wiped out the last ground bastion. Velok had torn through Obrecht's flame units with a precision no beast should possess, while Rourke laid charges across the comm structure. It was war. Pure and savage. And then came the trap. They had expected an ambush. They hadn't expected orbital nets. Velok fell first, dragged into the stasis field. Rourke refused to leave. He fought until his side was crushed, until the rifle cracked in half and the grenades were empty. They were captured together. When the cell doors slammed, when the interrogations began, neither broke. And now, here they stood, surrounded by the same aliens who'd ordered their world dissected and still didn't understand what they were truly facing. In the tribunal hall, the panic had dulled to tension. The guards remained frozen, unsure whether to fire or flee. Plasma rifles hummed in ready state, but not one was lifted. Velok stood calmly beside Rourke, fur unruffled, tail still. "You should not speak," the judge hissed. "You are not recognized by this tribunal. You are not sentient." Velok's gaze locked onto him. "Then perhaps you should stop pretending to be." Gasps erupted again, though none as loud as the crack that echoed from above. One of the upper dome spires split under an unseen pressure. Dust filtered downward in lazy spirals. "You're bluffing," General Droth said, his voice uneven now. "A single predator with a learned tongue does not change what you are. You are a beast." Rourke smiled without warmth. "He's more disciplined than half your command chain. Speaks better too." "Silence the human," barked the judge. Velok moved, not fast but firm. A single paw raised again, not in threat but in warning. The gesture stopped the guards cold. Every species in the chamber recognized that pose. Not prey. Not pet. Protector. "You fear what you can't leash," Rourke said. "That's the problem with your empire. You've forgotten what it means to stand beside something powerful without needing to own it. And you expect us to believe this alliance? This bond?" spat a Threxian archivist. "That your apex predators simply chose loyalty? They chose understanding. They chose reason. They chose us because we earned them." Another of the generals, one with scaled skin and silver eyes, leaned forward. "And what happens when they unchoose you?" "They don't," Velok answered. "Because we don't trade loyalty like currency. That is your way." More murmurs. Then a new sound, low and distant. A howl. No. A tremor. Beneath the tribunal floor, something massive stirred. Rourke's eyes flicked upward. He knew that rhythm. Not artillery. Not tectonic. Footsteps. The judge rose. "What is that?" Velok didn't answer. He just turned his head, listening. One by one, lights along the upper spire edge flickered and died. Outside the transparent dome, snow had begun falling in earnest. Thick flakes spiraled down in impossible slow motion. Drexel Prime was a desert planet. Its atmosphere couldn't sustain frozen precipitation. And yet, frost spread along the inner dome edge, curling like iceborne vines. Rourke's voice was quiet, almost kind. "You should have let us speak when we asked." The judge's voice shook. "What have you done?" The tribunal's central platform pulsed red. Emergency override signals crackled over every comm channel. A coalition destroyer reported sensor anomalies above the North Pole. Heat signatures, drop trajectories, breaches in atmospheric stability. Rourke didn't move. Velok sat once more. "They found us," the commander murmured. "They?" Droth choked out. There was no answer. Only the echo of footfalls outside, dozens of them, some quadruped, others human. The ice cracked again. And this time the dome itself answered. The dome cracked down the center like a frozen mirror struck by a hammer. Shards rained from the ceiling in slow, spiraling arcs, refracting light as they fell. Aliens in the upper tiers scattered in a panic, robes snagging on railing edges, claws skittering on polished floors. Security officers shouted orders in 6 languages, none of them effective. Plasma rifles were raised, but hands trembled. Not from cold. From something deeper. Fear of the unknown. The air pressure shifted again. It wasn't just snow anymore. The wind that poured in through the breach wasn't Drexel's arid breeze, it was Earth's winter made manifest. Icy, sharp, and alive. The judge slammed a fist into the emergency override console embedded in his podium. Lights flared red. Energy shields groaned to life across the exits. Too late. From the fog outside the shattered dome, shapes began to appear. Large ones. 6, maybe 7. 4-legged silhouettes, broad-shouldered and low to the ground, moved in precise formation. Their eyes glowed like distant stars, same as Velok's but multiplied now, mirrored across the white. One stepped forward and let loose a sound that shook the bones of every species present. Not a roar. A declaration. Another followed. Then another. Then came the humans. Drop armor blackened by atmospheric entry streaks. Boots that crunched ice under steel soles. Helmets with no insignia, only dark visors and matte finish. They moved with the kind of calm that didn't come from confidence, it came from survival. From having bled and frozen and clawed their way through worse. The lead soldier lifted a hand. The predator beside him stopped instantly. A synchronized command. They walked into the chamber like they owned it. General Droth drew his sidearm, hands shaking. This is an invasion, this is a violation of... The lead soldier raised his visor. She was young. Maybe 30. Brown skin. Scar down her cheek like a lightning bolt. Her eyes were hard and focused but calm. This is a rescue, she said. And a message. Droth fired. The bolt never hit her. Valok blurred across the distance between them, his paw sweeping through the air like a scythe of white lightning. The general was yanked from the ground, his body thrown against a pillar with a crack of bone and an echo of silence. His weapon clattered across the floor. No one moved. The woman turned toward Rourke. Commander. We're late. His smile was thin but real. Good entrance, Captain. The judge tried to reassert control. You are all under arrest. This is a tribunal of the Galactic Coalition. Your presence is unlawful. The woman ignored him. Coalition vessels have been warned. The sky over this sector is closed. All you had to do was listen. You refused. Who gave you authority to act here? Valok's voice echoed again. The predators surrounding the tribunal moved closer, flanking the humans like an honor guard. We did. The judge staggered back. This is madness. You expect us to take orders from animals. From outside the hall, a second wave of wind swept through, carrying with it the sound of engines descending. Not warships. Earthcraft. Atmospheric entries. The kind built for rapid deployment and surgical extraction. Rourke stepped forward, now completely free of restraint. You studied our weapons. Our history. Our tactics. But you never studied us. He gestured toward Valok, then toward the others, each apex predator holding position like a disciplined sentinel. You thought we trained them. That we controlled them. But Earth's strength was never in domination. It was in trust. The judge's voice faltered. You've turned predators into soldiers? No, Rourke said. We gave them the truth. And they chose to stand beside us. That's something you never saw coming. One of the crystalline walls cracked from top to bottom. Beyond it, the storm raged, not chaos but command. The temperature was dropping so quickly that alien sensors sparked with error. Drexel's climate systems had never accounted for Earth's atmospheric anomalies. This tribunal is dissolved, the captain said. You can't. It was never legitimate to begin with. You chained a sovereign representative of Earth and his bonded partner without treaty or cause. You paraded them like trophies. The Threxian judge trembled. You'll start a war. You already did, said Rourke. The predators didn't snarl. Didn't roar. They simply stood, watching the architects of a galactic superpower realize they were outmatched in a way they couldn't quantify. One of the alien scientists whispered to no one, but how? They're just animals. Valok's head tilted slightly. His gaze locked with the scientist. Define, just. The lights above the central chamber dimmed to emergency levels. Backup power flickered, then stabilized. Snow swirled through the breach above like lazy ashfall. A deep voice came through every active coalition comlink at once, overriding encryption. This is Earth Command. Cease all movement. You are surrounded by predators who do not need translators to understand cowardice. Stand down. Panic spread among the lesser officials. Some fell to their knees. Others tried to hide behind stone columns or between armored guards who no longer knew whom to protect. One of the apex lions walked to Rourke and sat beside him, pressing its head lightly against his hand. He stroked its fur once, then looked at the judge. This could have gone differently. The judge was pale now, his light refracting less, his crystalline limbs shaking. What do you want? Rourke studied him for a moment. You've taken planets, rewritten histories, enslaved species. You assumed Earth would fold. That we'd obey. His voice dropped. We're not part of your empire. We're not prey. And we're not alone. From behind the captain, another figure appeared, older, wrapped in a cold environment coat, his eyes marked by silver implants. He carried a scroll case in one hand and a rifle on his back. He handed the case to Rourke. The original terms, Rourke said, unrolling it slowly, letting the cold air catch its edges. These were the peace accords we offered before you invaded Earth's northwestern hemisphere. He let the parchment fall to the ground. Those are no longer valid. The judge collapsed into his seat. The predators stood silent, eyes gleaming. The humans didn't fire a shot. The message was clear. The silence that followed was no longer fearful, it was reverent. Even among the highest echelons of the Galactic Coalition, where pride bloated protocol and hierarchy, the old instinct still slumbered in their bones. A genetic memory that whispered what every species knew before it learned science or stars. When predators stop growling, that's when you run. But there was no running now. The tribunal's exits remained sealed by frost, warped shut by a temperature no desert world should have ever known. The storm above them wasn't natural. It was summoned, controlled, wielded like a spear thrown from a dying world that refused to be forgotten. Velox stepped forward, the chains he had once worn now shattered across the floor behind him. No guards tried to intervene. None dared. The other apex predators moved with him, fanning into a semicircle behind Rourke like a living crest of ice and muscle. The humans didn't speak. They didn't need to. Rourke stood in the center of the storm and met the judge's fractured gaze. Your empire built its strength on one lie, he said. That control is order. That obedience is peace. That fear is leadership. His voice echoed through the still air, calm and final. You thought you conquered Earth when you dropped your flags and demanded our surrender. You thought our predators would fall when you named them animals. But we don't kneel because someone tells us to. We kneel when someone earns it. The judge's voice was a whisper now, all shine drained from his crystalline frame. Then what are your terms? Velox answered before Rourke could. There will be no terms. Only acknowledgement. A single growl followed the words. One of the younger apexes, still trembling with restraint, still slick with snowmelt and dust. It had claw marks across its shoulder, signs of a battle survived before touchdown. It growled not at rage but in grief. A littermate had not made the drop. Velox turned his eyes to the coalition officers. Your worlds burn with war you bring upon yourselves. You call what you cannot understand. You call it civilization. He stepped closer, and the frost thickened beneath his paws, spreading like veins across the tribunal floor. We watched from Earth's forests. From caves. From oceans you never dove deep enough to reach. You saw only our fangs. Never our minds. He paused before the judge's pedestal. But this human, this commander, you never asked why we followed him. Rourke met Velox's gaze. There was no command. No signal. Just the same bond that had once held against artillery, orbital strikes, and the freezing dark. He never tamed us, Velox said aloud, this time with his real voice. Full. Measured. Deep as an avalanche. He walked beside us. Rourke blinked just once. Velox had never used his vocal cords before. The room froze. One of the aliens dropped to their knees without knowing why. The captain who had led the Earthstrike team stepped beside Rourke now. She removed her helmet fully, revealing more than a soldier's resolve. Her eyes were red-rimmed with cold and fury. My name is Captain Reyna Sol. We are not here for war. We came to make it clear the war is over. You just don't get to call yourselves victors. She held up a data slate. Coalition border fleets are surrounded. Your orbital beacons have been hijacked. Communications are disabled except for monitored Earth channels. Your entire outer quadrant just realized that a planet you called primitive has turned your systems against you using nothing more than a weather satellite and a mind you dismissed as bestial. The judge's shoulders sagged. This can't hold. You won't keep this. You're right, Rourke said. We're not staying. We don't want your world. Or your halls. He gestured to the open sky, snow still drifting lazily through the shattered dome. We have our own. He looked down at his feet where blood from old wounds still crusted against the ice. We just wanted you to understand that if you ever try to take it again, you won't have a second warning. Behind him, the predators began to move. Not to strike. To leave. Velox stayed still. Rourke turned back toward him. You coming? Velox didn't answer immediately. He turned once more to the judge. Remember this day. You were not spared by mercy. You were spared by choice. He followed Rourke out without another word. Behind them, snow continued to fall, over cracked marble, over fallen weapons, over the remains of a tribunal that had once believed itself invincible. The aliens didn't speak. They simply stood in the cold, watching the last footprints melt into the white. Outside, dropships ignited, their thrusters kicking up crystalline dust. The apex predators bounded inside without hesitation. Soldiers secured the perimeter, not with weapons drawn but with expressions that dared interruption. As Rourke boarded, he looked out across the dunes beyond the tribunal dome. Snow there too, where nothing had ever lived before. He exhaled slowly. Think they learned anything? Reyna asked beside him. Doesn't matter, he said. We didn't come to teach. Velox settled beside him in the rear of the ship, lowering his massive frame onto the steel plating like a lion laying down beside a hearth. Rourke rested a hand against the beast's fur. We came to end it. The hatch sealed behind them. Far below, Drexel Prime would spend years trying to thaw. But for now, it sat beneath a storm called Earth, and for the first time in generations, the galaxy understood what it meant to face something that had never bowed to their empire. Not because it couldn't, but because it didn't have to, and never would. The storm had passed, but its memory lingered in the shattered architecture of the tribunal complex and the strange stillness in the air. Frost clung to the scorched stone, where once alien senators had roared with laughter and arrogance. Now they moved only in silence. Some were gone, either escorted out in disgrace or too ashamed to show their faces again. High above the ruins, in an orbital hangar built into the crescent of a broken moon, Captain Darius Kale stood overlooking the cold world below, arms folded across his chest. Beside him sat the White Predator, Aryan as it was now known in Earth's databases. No longer chained. No longer silent. Darius had declined the medals. He didn't need them. The Alliance had offered him a formal title, some diplomatic nonsense, but he walked away from the ceremony before the words could be spoken. He wasn't interested in being the man who tamed a beast. Aryan was no one's pet. She had merely chosen to speak, for him. Now she rested quietly at his side, tail flicking idly, her crystalline eyes half-lidded in what resembled feline contentment. Yet he knew her well enough to feel the coiled awareness beneath her relaxed posture. She was always listening. You know, Darius said after a long moment, I don't think they'll ever understand why you did it. Aryan's voice, still uncanny in its tonality, an echo that seemed to bypass the ears and settle in the chest, replied, They don't need to understand. Only remember. Darius gave a dry chuckle. That they will. The door behind them hissed open. Ambassador Viral, the only surviving Zarathi from the tribunal who had stood with Darius rather than against him, approached with tentative steps. His crest was dimmed, an alien sign of reverence or perhaps shame. We have concluded the terms, Viral said, voice rasping through his translator collar. Earth has been granted independent arbitration status. Your kind is no longer required to submit specimens or citizens for study. Darius raised a brow. So we're not lab rats anymore. Progress. There is also, Viral added carefully, a motion to recognize your species as mutually dangerous. It passed unanimously. Aryan gave a soft snort. Fair enough, Darius said. But that's not why you came, is it? The ambassador glanced at the predator beside him and hesitated. The others want to know what she is. Why she protected you. They fear she will return to her kind and turn them against us. Darius shrugged. If they listen to her, maybe they'd learn something. If they fight her, he met Viral's gaze, eyes hard. They won't like how that ends. Viral bowed his head, slow and solemn. Then may we never give her a reason. The ambassador left without another word. Silence settled again, the kind that stretched comfortably between those who had survived something terrible together. Darius leaned back against the railing, staring into the vast sweep of stars beyond the hangar's transparent shell. You could leave, he said. They all know what you are now. What you're capable of. They wouldn't try to stop you. Aryan's head turned slowly, gaze locking with his. And leave my alpha? He looked at her, a ghost of a smile rising. I'm not your alpha. You never commanded me. That's why you are. The silence after that felt deeper, heavier, threaded with an unspoken understanding that needed no further words. In the days that followed, rumors swirled across the stars. Some said Earth had awakened an ancient weapon. Others whispered of a predator who had spoken prophecy in the tribunal before shattering it with words sharper than blades. A few dared suggest that this creature had not merely defended a human, but chosen one. Darius didn't bother correcting the stories. He preferred it that way. Let the galaxy wonder. Let them stay cautious. Earth needed no empire, no fleets that shadowed suns. It had Aryan. And that, apparently, was enough to change how the universe looked at humanity. On the day Darius left the orbiting station, walking down the boarding ramp toward the transport that would carry him back to Earth, Aryan followed. No leash. No command. Just a single pause as she turned her head and glanced back at the station and the diplomats watching from above. One last look. They bowed. Every one of them. Darius watched, stunned for a beat, then gave a faint nod. Good, he muttered. They finally got the message. Arian padded forward, the faint crunch of her claws on metal echoing like punctuation. They understand now. Earth is not prey. Earth breeds alphas. The hatch closed behind them, engines igniting with a slow hum as stars bent in the distance. Somewhere far away, other worlds were still laughing at Earth's weakness. But not for long. Because the apex had spoken. And it remembered,